Yo, what is up, everyone? It is Lion here, and today I'm going over the new balance changes that just happened in Gods Unchained this week. So, these patch notes just dropped on May the 12th, and there are some pretty large changes that happened here. It's only a couple of cards, but the repercussions on the meta are going to be massive. So, let's get into this. As you can see, we have the Mana Toad all mana'd out right here, featured on the front. What happened in these changes is there were some adjustments that were made to try to improve the balance of the gods that are being used right now. If you take a look at the Monday Mythic Meta wrap-ups from the Professor, or if you've just been paying attention in general, you can see that there's a huge amount of players that are primarily playing nature, and then with that at Mythic rating, there are some serious balance issues going on with Magic right now, where one of the top players in the game, Mirage88, was able to go 25 wins out of 25, 3 weekends in a row. And so they've tried to address this, and here's some of the ways that they've decided to do that. We can see some of the more underutilized gods right now are War, Light, and Deception. We're seeing a deficit in play from those gods. And so what happened here, let's take a look at the changes. The first changes here are going to be buffs for light cards. This is the Bright Mage. They've increased the strength by 1, reduced the health by 1, and the creatures gained ward. So instead of being a 2/4, this is now a 3/3 and has gained ward. Ward makes it unable to be hit by a spell from a god power. Roars and attacks from relics and things like this go through this, but anything cast from the hand of a god, that is going to be negated by ward. And this is big because what they're trying to do is give Light a leg up on Magic, presumably. And so another change here is the Devoted Follower. This is a 3/2 that has now gained ward, and it already, whenever it hit another creature, would reduce its attack by 2. So as you can see here, they say the 2 changes are designed to increase the resilience of Light's creatures and the position early Light has against Magic sweepers. Changing Bright Mage from a 2/4 to a 3/3 also gives early game Light more of a punch to trade with bigger creatures. One of the side effects of this is it does not get hit by Asterius, but I think that this change is good, keeping in mind that Asterius is almost necessary right now for Light to be competitive, and giving Light other cards that have some sort of benefit or value outside of needing Asterius is actually very much needed, because this is a core legendary that's very hard to acquire for most players. I don't have one right now. I'm like a level, I think 124 right now, or something around there, and I still don't have one of these. So giving players the ability to play Light competitively without needing Asterius and giving this creature 3 attack here, I think that it's a good change. I think it's a good change, and I like to see this. We're gonna have to see how this affects the meta, but I do like these changes. And again, these are all to welcome and core cards, which most players will have access to. They're commons that are being changed here. These are cards that most players have played with and will play with. The next changes here are to War, and the first one is the Raid Reveler. Now, Raid Reveler has an increase in strength by 1, so it is, instead of being a 2/2, now a 3/2, and what Raid Reveler used to do is give all the other creatures in your hand +1 strength. Instead, now it has Protected. It does have a little bit of counter synergy with the next change, though, and this is absolutely massive. The biggest change of this balancing patch for sure, and that is the Call to Arms buff. And it's technically a change, but it is insane. So what they've done is they've changed Call to Arms from draw a card, give each creature in your deck 1 strength, to give protect. So you still draw a card, but give Protected to each creature in your deck. And yeah, so you're drawing a card and you're giving Protected to each creature in your deck. And this is a massive buff to Onslaught, because you can run 2 of these, and in a control deck, cycling a card for 3 is the only downside to to drawing 2 of these, where, most of the time as Onslaught, you're passing and not spending your mana anyway, so cycling a card for 3 isn't that big of a deal. But all of your creatures having protected, Knock v Pillager was already insane. The Onslaught wasn't in a bad spot. It could have used a little bit of a buff, but I'm not sure that this change was necessary. It's heavy-handed, and it's definitely throwing the meta through a loop right now. So, we're going to see more on this. You're probably going to see this played super heavily, just different variants of War across the weekend. But yeah, definitely keep a lookout for this. And if you're playing this game, definitely play test with Call to Arms. It's become a bit of a meme. It's intense, but it's also a welcome set card. So everybody that plays the game, you start with this card. Next up is the nerfs, and there's only a single nerf coming out to Magic, and that is the Mana Toad. The strength was decreased from 2 to 1, and the key here is that now this card can be Lights Levied and Umber Arrowed, and I think the direction of this change is to give Deception and give Light more of a chance against the Magic matchup, which these 2 gods have been struggling to gain foothold in the meta, and Magic has been dominant because it counters nature primarily. It kind of just beats everything. And so this change, it's a small change, but I think it's a good one. A little side note, I did recommend this change on stream live, and Dan the Dev did get this over to the development team. I don't know if they had already been looking at this card as a change and thought this was a good idea, or heard from me the idea and decided to implement it. Either way, I'm feeling good about it because either my change that was suggested was seen as valuable and implemented, or I am thinking along the same lines of good balancing changes that'll help the game state. And I think it accomplishes 3 things. It makes the Mana Toad not trade so well against other creatures on the board, which allows you to maintain board control while the opponent's ramping, which is a good balance, against Magic. It gives 2 of the underutilized gods, Deception and Light, more ground to fight against ramp Magic. And, it's a small balance adjustment, and I find these to be tasteful. I find that from my personal perspective, I like tuning. I like balancing changes where small changes are made. I do not like wide sweeping, heavy-handed changes. So the Mana Toad change, I think, is a strong one. I think I guess I wouldn't say it's super impactful, but I think it's the type of small balancing tweaks that are needed to get everything in line with one another. I'm a little disappointed to not see a Sip of Elixir change here. I think the card is too powerful. Being able to ramp and draw for 2 is just too strong, and I think that they really need to rethink how strong ramping is in this game in general. It's not particularly a fun mechanic, and it doesn't cost enough for the opponent. It should actually cost you more board state, should cost you something, and being able to draw a card and ramp for 1 for 2 mana is just it needs to be rethought. The Mana Toad's a good start, but I'd like to see more here from the development team. The next change is a big one because of how prevalent nature is in the meta and how heavily this card was used. They changed the Hunt. Now, the Hunt does 6 damage, rolled 1 damage at a time to the creatures on the other side of the board. And this change going from 5 mana to 6 mana is huge. For those of you who know about the game, I figure anyone watching a balancing video does play Gods Unchained. But the change from 5 to 6 mana means it takes you 2 turns to then get to that additional mana crystal. And so this removes that wide sweep, that one-sided board damage. This isn't a spell like Astric Implosion, which also hurts creatures on your side, or something like Wildfire, which hurts creatures on both sides of the board. Hunt strictly hits creatures on the other side of the board. There is some randomness, so there's a downside to it, but moving it from 5 to 6 mana means it is 2 additional turns before you can cast this spell. And I'm not sure that I really think that this was the right way to go with this. I've talked to some people in chat and people in the community, and maybe reducing the damage here down to 5 damage instead of 6 damage might have been a nicer tweak here. But putting this at 6 may make it unplayable. We're going to have to see how that unfolds in the meta, especially this upcoming weekend. One of the things that they stated is they didn't want it to be an auto include, and they want it to be more tailored for nature control. But I feel like nature control has other options such as Wildfire, it has Lightning Strike, it has Canopy Barrage, it has Enchanted Vines also at 6, which is deal 4 to 4 random creatures. This also hits your side of the board, but it also gives you a random nature card. So you're getting a card back to your hand, and you're typically doing way more damage and clearing off bigger creatures than if you were to just use the Hunt. The thing about the Hunt is it's typically a mid-range tool. That's the way I would think about it, and I think it may have been too strong and auto-included in too many aggro decks. I, for one, was running a Gloam Druid deck that, got value out of the Hunt because you're able to just hit stuff on the other side of the board and then keep going face. You're able to remove defenders and power building up on the other side of the board to maintain board control without having to cost any of your creatures. But as far as being something that would be more tailored to controlling nature decks, I don't think that it really accomplishes this too well. I think that Enchanted Vines is just a better option, and that particularly putting things at 6 mana cost really puts it in a weird spot. So I would have liked to see the damage decrease rather than a mana increase here, but we'll see how this affects the meta if the card still gets play and what happens from here on that one. We'll be keeping an eye on it. After that, we have the changes to Deception cards. Now, this one is pretty huge. There's a little bit of a misprint here compared to what we saw in-game. Assassin's Aim is a 2 mana cost card now, and before it was 1 cost, you give a creature hidden and you draw a card. Now it is give 3 strength, so 3 attack damage to a creature, and at the end of that same turn, it will gain hidden. One thing that I have found through playtesting is that creature can remain hidden until it attacks, which gives you some interesting play lines that you can make now. I do actually like that part about it. It's a bit odd. It costs 2. It gives that 3 strength and then keeps something hidden. Now you have Dark Knives, which is a rare for 1, which is almost essentially the same card. It gives something plus 3 attack, and if it's already hidden, you then give it flank. So I feel as if the rarity to power value may be getting a little skewed here, but other than that, it seems all right. Overall, we're really going to have to see how this affects the meta before I can make any definitive statements on whether or not I think this, Assassin's Aim change specifically is a good or bad change. I do think that all of these changes make the game a little bit more focused on RNG and chance and rock, paper, scissors like. And I don't really want to see that sort of balance change moving into the future. One of the major ways that I'm seeing this is if we take a look back at Call to Arms. It's one of those cards where if you draw it in your opening hand and you're able to play it with a pip on turn 2, that you almost are assuredly going to win the game depending on the matchup. Whereas if you don't get it till a little bit later, the deck power just really falls behind. And I don't like that. I really would like to see these changes spread out among more cards rather than just, consolidated into single card changes. So all in all, I guess we can wrap this up. The other changes that were this patch are just fixes. Palace's Incantation, fix an issue that occasionally caused matches to lock up. I've experienced this. It's not fun. Rod of Rodents, a couple other changes that just prevented soft locks and bug fixing. But all in all, I think that these changes need to be spread out among more cards and not so centrally focused on single cards in the set, where you can take a couple of cards in different domains of gods and then tweak those and give them some abilities so that you can see the outcome that you want. And I think that there's a little bit of an approach here being taken that, like, instead of nerfing things that are overpowered, let's just buff everything else up to its power. And I'm not against doing some changes like that, but at the end of the day, you're not really fixing the root issue of ramp magic being a problem. And I would really like to see them take single outliers and tone them down on the target cards that are an issue in tandem with some smaller changes to other gods. I don't want to see everything ramp up to these power levels of like, this is really overpowered, so let's just move all of this stuff up at different places. And it feels erratic, and it feels like it's going to have negative implications all around on the meta. But that's just my take on it. I don't do this professionally. I just play the game. So we'll see what happens here. I just wanted to give you all a quick review on the changes that came through in the patch notes and what I think it means for the meta. Let me know what you think about the changes in the comments below, and we'll discuss this more on stream. If you don't know, I stream on twitch.tv/LionUnchained Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Saturdays. Typically, I'm from 6 to 9 p.m. during the weekdays, and Saturday, I do an all-day stream. So you can catch me there. Let's talk about the changes. Let's play test some decks. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more videos like this, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I will see you next time. Peace.